Yo people, what's up? Shadow here, and today we're gonna talk about something gaming news related. Yesterday there was an announcement trailer for Age of Empires 4. Well, I say trailer, it's more of a teaser kind of thing. It doesn't show really anything. It's basically a slideshow of different historical things, and at the end it says Age of Empires 4. But if you haven't seen it, I'll link to it in the description box below. And what I want to talk about is basically, as I saw this trailer, there was one thing that was popping into my mind, and it was hopefully Age of Empires 4 is going to be a sequel to Age of Empires 2 and not Age of Empires 3, if you know what I mean. Because to this day I still play Age of Empires 2. Every once in a while I'll just throw it on again and just play a few matches. It's fun. On the other side, Age of Empires 3 I played when it came out, maybe a few days, and that's it. I never touched it since. So that, of course, sparked some questions in me. For example, what would an Age of Empires 4 need to impress me so much that I really can say, yes, this is a successful sequel that replaces Age of Empires 2? Is it even possible? And therefore, I thought I would make a list. Because these are popular, right? On the YouTubes, that's what people do, right? So I've never done one of these, I think. So this list is going to be the top 5 things I want to see in Age of Empires 4 and the top 5 things I would rather not want to see in Age of Empires 4. So let's jump right into it. First off, let's start with the negatives so we can get these out of the way first. Without further ado, number 5. No DLC early pre-order shenanigans. That's a thing that I've been noticing for a lot of games, and it's a thing that the gaming industry does a lot. I'm talking about day one DLC, special pre-order bonuses if you pre-order at a certain store or a certain brand, and that's something that can ruin games for me. At least at something like this. I don't think Age of Empires needs stuff like that. Also, day one DLC, like locking Civilisations behind a paywall, even though they could have been included in the full game, that's, I think, something that would, for me, kind of destroy this game. It's at the top of the list because it can be done well, it really can, but I rather would not have to deal with this. Number 4. No hero units. This is more of a gameplay type of thing. I mean, I know they have experimented a bit with Age of Empires 3, and I mean, they might be tempted to go a completely different direction with Age of Empires 4, but something I would not like to see is hero units of any kind of sorts in single player. I'm not talking about campaigns. Campaign is something different. Single player or multiplayer, for that matter, for me always was in Age of Empires the thing that you control an army, you build up an empire, and you are the commander, you're the king, and that's the only hero this game needs, right? So you're commanding the army, you're not commanding like a hero that slaughters battalions of enemy soldiers. That's not something that fits with Age of Empires, and I really hope they don't do that. Number 3. Don't go comical. This is in reference to 2 things, and actually they kind of tie in together. The first thing is graphical speaking. One of the things that really bothered me about the new Civilisations game was the art style. This comical art style. I know there's a lot of people liking this, and inherently there's nothing bad with that. But for me, it doesn't fit with the more serious historical kind of game that Age of Empires is. So I rather prefer a more realistic art style, a more realistic looking game, because Age of Empires tends to be historically very interesting, you know? And with that follows the second thing, don't go comical in a sense of gameplay. If you ever played Empire Earth 3, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about units spouting one-liners after you click on them a few times too much and stuff like that. Things you would know from like Warcraft 3 had a lot of these. And in Warcraft 3 it never bothered me because it was a fantasy universe. It was a bit silly. It was epic as well, but sometimes it was really a bit silly. And Age of Empires for me was never a silly game. The silliness sometimes came through gameplay, sure, but it was not inherently like a jokey, funny, silly game. It was a historical like RTS with a lot of battles and awesome epic empires and stuff like that. And if I play Age of Empires, I rather prefer the units answering my actions with like their native tongue, like they did in Age of Empires 2, rather than them suddenly starting to spout some philosophical one-liner bullshit about why am I not running out of arrows? That is weird, haha. No, just please don't. Number 2. Don't try to cover too much ages. Age of Empires 2, of course, had only 4 ages, which is good. That was very good. It was very precise, it was very, very, very tight, and every age meant something to me. Every age had its advantages, disadvantages, and every age had its iconic units, and it was very clear to every player, or at least to most players, what you do in each age, you know? They tried something different in some of the other games. For example, Empire Earth. I know it's not quite the same as Age of Empires, I know, but there they tried to cover a ton of ages. I think it was 14 or something. And what I encountered there is it was not really satisfying. The ages were sometimes very indistinguishable from each other. So one age to another was just basic, some few little changes, and then suddenly one age to another was a huge jump again. Suddenly your humans turned into freaking killer death robots, and that felt really disconnecting. And everybody who's ever played Empire Earth knows how silly it is when your medieval knights get reduced to atomic ash by some weird nuclear bomber from the digital age or something like that. So I'd rather have them stick to a very close period of time. And looking at the trailer, I'm actually not quite sure, because the trailer, the historical slideshow as I like to call it, basically showed a lot of different ages and cultures, from like the Spartans to conquistadors to like the first muskets and stuff. So not quite sure if that's representative of the ages they want to represent, but I really hope they don't overdo it. Number 1. No progression system. Something that really bothered me in Age of Empires 3. It really bothered me was that weird kind of progression system that you had for your cities, rather for your civilizations. The more you played with them, the more points you would unlock, and then you could unlock these kind of cards, which inherently I didn't thought that was a bad system, because it gave you some customization, some things you could do during gameplay that was not just building and fighting. And that, as I said, inherently that's not bad, but the way it was done, that it was locked behind a progression system, which meant you had to grind a bit with each nation to even get to a certain level, that is something I really don't like. And I know it's being crammed in a lot of games today. Progression systems is a thing that is being put into games that sometimes will not need it, in my opinion. I know why they do it. Progression systems, of course, make the player feel engaged, kinda. It's a feeling of progression, of course. It makes players come back and play more because they want to get better, they want to come farther. But in an RTS, that's just the wrong kind of progression for me. It's not an RPG where you level up a character. It's a game where you play different civilizations, and if you lock certain features of civilizations behind such a wall of experience that you need to play, I don't know, 20 games to unlock a certain unit, that's ridiculous. it even also means that players will tend to focus on one civilization instead of trying out different ones, which for me was like the best thing about Age of Empires 2, that there were so many civilizations and you could try out every one of them and you could just hop into a game and play. And with progression systems, that whole thing is not really something you can do, because you don't get the full taste of a civilization when you just start out. So no progression system. You know, if you really want to reward players for sticking to one culture and playing that a lot, you could do something along the lines of StarCraft, where you reward people that play with one certain culture a lot, get rewarded with a set of icons which they can display their mastery of that culture. So I do not say don't reward the players who play one civilization a lot. I just say don't punish the ones that switch often. Alright, so we have the negatives out of the way, so let's go into the positives, the thing I really would like to see in Age of Empires 4. Number 5. Lots of civilizations. Yeah, of course, this is almost standard, I think. Everybody wants that, right? I'm not even talking about that the base game needs to have 500 different civilizations. That's not what I'm talking about. I just want them to have a good selection at the beginning, and I really hope they put into the base game some of the iconic civilizations from their Age of Empires 2. And then I wouldn't even be mad if they put in some sensible DLC. And what I mean by that is, don't try us to sell races or civilizations one by one. That's fucking weird. Rather do it like you did with Age of Empires 2. Do these like themed packs, like the African kingdoms, where you have a lot of these African different tribes and civilizations from ages gone. Or maybe do an Asian pack, or I don't know, a South American pack, I don't know. Stuff like that. If you do it sensibly and give us a good base amount, I think lots of players will be very happy. Number 4. Map objectives. One thing I liked about Age of Empires 3 was the map objectives it had. The things that were spawning on the map that your explorer could interact with. It gave the game a bit of spice, a little bit of randomness even. And a little bit of randomness is actually fine, in my opinion. It gives the game a bit more variety, and it makes people adapt to the gameplay. So what I mean with map objectives, there's several things they could do. They could go the route of Age of Empires 3, where you have these camps that you can explore that give you random resources. They could go the way Civilization does it with ancient ruins, that if you discover them, they give you a random benefit. That can be resources, units, technology, something like that. Or maybe something more active. Maybe like a building that you can control. Like in StarCraft, I think there are these watchtowers, and if you control them, you have a bigger sight radius around that building. Stuff like that would make the map a bit more tactical and not just terrain with some resources on it. You know, give the map some meaning with these objectives. I think that would be very good and spice up the Age of Empires gameplay. Number 3. An interesting single player / campaign. For me, Age of Empires 2 was always a single player game. Why? Because I suck at it. I'm really gotta be honest. I'm not good at real-time strategy games. I'm just not. I'm too slow. I react way too slow. I just get sidetracked all the time, and I'm the idiot who tries to build a nice-looking city while other people are already in the Imperial Age and start to stomp down my whole fucking realm. Well, therefore, single player was mostly the thing that I did against AI or the campaigns. And Age of Empires 2 delivered a lot on that front. I mean, come on, hands up in the audience, who of you did learn about history through Age of Empires? Anybody? I mean, come on. There's a lot of people you would never heard about, or you would not have done any research on, or you would not have any idea about. if there was not the Age of Empires 2 campaigns, right? So there's a lot of still untold stories and interesting figures from our past that could be made into campaigns, obviously. So I really hope they nail that, and of course they put in some good AI for single player, so us newbies who do not really fare well in competitive environments of this game can have our fun, right? Number 2. A good map editor. I think a lot of Age of Empires 2 player can testify to that more than I can, because I tried to use the editor and I gave up very soon. And it's not that I'm not used to mapping. I used to do maps for Warcraft 3 with that editor, and even that editor is very limited at some things. But the Age of Empires 2 editor for me was living hell, really. I didn't like the editor, it was clumsy, it was just not a nice thing to do. And a good editor could really catapult this game ahead a lot. Because as we know, games with good editors spawn not only good maps that will make people want to play the game, they can even spawn entire other games and game genres for that matter. So I really think they should come up with a very good editor for their next sequel. Number 1. eSports. Maybe that's a bit of a controversial one, I don't know, but I really would like to see an official esports scene for Age of Empires. I know there's kind of an esports scene for Age of Empires 2, and I watched a lot of like commented gameplay, and that is really fun. As much as I suck at multiplayer, I love to watch pros at it, because these guys are in another dimension. And really making it an official scene with high prize money and stuff like that, that would make it amazing to me. I would watch that shit, really. And the thing is, a active esports would also ensure that the game gets regular updates and balance patches, you know? And I think that could be very beneficial for everybody, right? So I would really love an official esports scene for this game, and also the developer kinda, you know, looking to create an environment where professional esports can flourish, you know? Because not every game is good for esports. I mean, there's games that are just too buggy and they don't take enough measures to actually make it a good esports, and the tournaments end up in disaster. Looking at you, For Honor. And yeah, that's basically my list about the things I want to see and don't see in Age of Empires 4. Of course, that's my personal bias a bit. There's a personal opinion in it for a lot of things. It's not like a factual list that needs to be done to make it successful. It's just my things I would like to see. So feel free to tell me what you like to see, what you don't like to see, if you disagree with me or agree with me, of course. And there's one topic I would pose as a question to everybody watching this video. Would you like to see special abilities on units in Age of Empires? What kind of special abilities, you might ask? Like in the style of Warcraft, where maybe your swordsmen can raise their shields for a certain time to block out arrow fire, something like that. Or maybe a speed boost for your knights or something, so they can charge in. I didn't want to put this in the negative or positive column because I was not sure about it. So I'm asking you guys, would you like to see something like that? Would that be a beneficial thing for Age of Empires, or would that be terrible? Would that completely change the gameplay and make it weird and strange? What do you guys think? Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on another video. Take care.